Every journey begins with a step. It's all in the realm of possibility. So here's a question. Why not me?
Why not me?
Feel better. We call these breakthroughs, and you will absolutely have a breakthrough moment yourself. There's never a dull moment. Hey everyone, it's Brent Payne. Welcome to All In.
Is your show really called All In?
Yeah.
That's like my big thing. Commitment. Commit and crush.
We've got an amazing guest on here today, a pro cyclist who performed at the highest level in one of the most demanding sports on earth.
You really need to show people what you're capable of, and you have to do it on a scale where people can measure it and understand it.
A gentleman who rode alongside Lance Armstrong.
He just said, "You ready to do this?" I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
And lived through the era's doping scandals, and now a teacher, a coach, and an author.
I never, ever once was like, is this worth it?
His book, Cycling on Form, is not only a way to excel the highest levels of bicycle race competition, it's also packed with really great advice for anyone looking to focus on what is important to them.
That's the mindset. All in, fully committed. If you hit a roadblock, you go around it.
So I'm pleased to introduce you to Mr. Tom Danielson. Tom, how the heck are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me here.
I feel like I'm talking to a rock star, man. You've done some amazing things in your career. Tell us a little bit about your background for those that may not be familiar with you.
Yeah, I grew up in East Lyme, Connecticut, and was always passionate about things, from a young age. Really wanted to get into, whatever I could get my hands on and try to master it. So I remember being really into like fishing and being obsessed with fishing, just completely going all into fishing and trying to be the best at that. And then I transitioned to motocross. That was kind of the next thing I was obsessed over. And my parents, I did that for a while and they thought that was too dangerous. So I kind of looked to the next thing, and that's where I found a mountain bike. And then I just went completely all into cycling and haven't stopped since. So along the way, I became a professional road racer. Got to race in the biggest scale of the sport. I did the Tour de France. I actually finished 8th overall.
Yeah, he's
like, so far, yeah. No way.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, there's only been like 4 Americans that have finished top 10 in the Tour. So that's one of my biggest results. Won stages in the other Grand Tours in the Vuelta a España. Won a team time trial in Tour de France, which was cool. And then won a bunch of big races like Tour of Austria, Tour of Georgia, Tour of Utah. Really had a great career and just committed to the process and learned a lot along the way, but really enjoyed the journey.
So how did your passion for cycling go from mountain biking to road? What happened there?
Whew. I was good at mountain biking and I was, winning, was excelling at it. But they started designing the courses differently. So they used to go up to the top of ski resorts and come back down. That was the courses. And then they changed it. So it was these flat, short courses because they, wanted to make it more spectator friendly. And I was a really small rider, lightweight, 130 pounds. I didn't excel. I didn't have the power of the other riders. I had a road bike. I trained on a road bike and I was out on a local group ride and people used to keep telling me, they're like, you should do road racing. You're really fast on the climbs. And finally I just took it. I just said, you know what? Like, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to try this road stuff. And I excelled at it immediately. And at first I didn't want to do it either, right? Like I just like most people, you're stubborn and obsessed. So I was like, I'm going to figure this mountain biking out. Like it's still, it doesn't matter that it's, that I don't have, I'll just make more power. I'll just become stronger. And I was like even winning road races and I'd be like, well, I'm winning road races to get stronger for mountain biking. And eventually I just, I got a pro contract offer. It was really the turning point for me. And it was like, I wasn't making any money mountain biking. And all of a sudden I had a job on road and I started doing it and I fell in love with it. Boom. Found a whole career there.
So you've always been known as a climber. You actually still hold some records. Mount Washington, Mount Evans. that where people started taking notice?
You know, if you're trying to break out or you're trying to break to the next level, you really need to show people what you're capable of, and you have to do it on a scale where people can measure it and understand it. And if you're not already a pro, you know, how can you show people, you know, what you're capable of being as a pro if you're not in the races? So it was simple, and I knew I was a good climber, and I was like, well, I'm going to show, because I'm going to put my time up against these other times and win these races, but break the record. And yes, that's where, you know, people really took notice, and they said, holy cow, this guy can climb. First of all, you got to become good enough. And then two, look for a place where you can show that can be measured against, you know, where you're trying to go.
So was that when you first knew you had enough to be a professional? Like when you started proving yourself?
That's another great question. And so I work with a lot of people that are trying to become professionals, and, you know, and this is this term all in, you know, where all this comes into play is it's like, if you're truly on this path to become a professional, you're not looking for things to tell you you can do it or you can't. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they're looking for these things to justify their sacrifice. And, you know, on my journey, I never had to justify my sacrifice. I threw so much money down the toilet, right? My parents' money, time, like, you know, like sacrificed relationships. But I never, ever once sat there and was like, is this worth it? And that's, like, for me, the true definition of being all in is you're so committed to this path, to this thing that you're chasing, that you're not looking around for someone or something to justify it and say, oh, you can do it. You're too busy actually figuring out how to do it. You don't have time to hear or look or whatever. So no, like, you know, I believed I was going to become a professional cyclist the second I started trying to do it. When I started trying to do it, I wasn't that good, you know, like there was nothing around me that said you can be a professional cyclist, other than my crazy obsessed passion to go out and chase it every single day. And every day I loved it that much, where I would come back and I wasn't like, hey, was that good enough? I was like, I can't wait to make that better tomorrow, you know? And that's the difference. And, you know, for anyone that's listening and saying, I want to master something, or I want to get to the next level, that's the mindset, right? Like, really all in, fully committed to your cause, and not looking for things to either justify it or derail it. Just, you know, if you hit a roadblock, you go around it, but you're not looking for something to say, you know, does the universe think that I can do this or not? You're the only person that can do that.
Oh, great advice. So you rode some of the most demanding sporting events in the world. What do you have to put your body and your mind through to just finish those races, let alone finish in the top 10 like you did?
A lot of people don't ever really ask that. They say that must be hard, but no one really says, well, what is define hard? What do you go through? And it's a mix, right? The mind and the body are connected. And normally, like professional athletes, like, we're very good at telling our body what to do with our mind. But the trick in these grand tours is they're 21 days long, 21 races in a row. You know, we don't race those races as if there's 21 either. It's like each one is like the last race. People race it to the end, and then they worry about fixing themselves afterwards. When you first start these races, obviously you come in with a lot of fitness. You have to train really hard. You know, what energy system are you using? What types of muscle fibers are you using? What level of lactate is in your body? And so we're training these zones, and these zones will match and correlate with the terrain or the racing, right? So on the mountaintops, we're using a mix of glycogen and fat. And on the flat stages, we're using mostly fat, maybe a little bit of sugar. You know, at the very ends of the sprint stages, we're using sugar. It's more like we train our bodies to be super efficient in those zones. And then when we're racing, we're very good at staying committed to being in those zones each day in the races. So if you're able to do that, it's possible to train specifically for these, you know, metabolic demands that you're going to have on your body, and it can recover well from it. It doesn't tank your immune system. It doesn't tank your body. You don't get too much inflammation because your body is very used to it. As we go into these races, the physical strain isn't as what people would think it is. because our bodies are so well trained going into it. What really gets hard in these races is the mind, and specifically the central nervous system, because one, there's a lot of pressure to perform. You have a strategy, you try to, you're playing the game more or less out on the bike while you're in physical stress. Mentally, it's a chess match out there. You're trying to figure things out. But then it's also a race car race at the same time. We're going up and down these mountains. There's high speed. We're going as fast as 70 miles an hour in the groups of 200 people, really close together. It's like having a car crash. You know that feeling where someone pulls out in front of you and you slam on your brakes and you get that massive adrenaline rush? Mm-hmm. Like that's how racing feels at that level. You can't really get away from that. There's so many almost crashes. There's so much speed. There's so much risk. So the mental side of it becomes that you're managing all this stuff. You're managing trying to be strategic. You're trying to manage all this like fear. And then you're doing it every single day. And so one of the things we get really good at is learning how to check in and check out. So, when you come to the start line, that's checking in. When you finish the race, you're checking out. So when you're off the bike, you're not racing, you're super away from it. Right. And so that helps. But even doing that sort of thing, when you get to like really the second week is where it gets difficult, right around stage 14 or whatever, or excuse me, the third week after the second week, that's when it gets really hard where your central nervous system is toast. And the best way to describe it is almost like things are in slow motion. It's really odd. And another thing I remember is you lose your short-term memory. You start your body, it starts to go away almost. Like you'll have a conversation with someone and you won't remember it right after it. You'll read something on your phone and you'll go do something and you'll forget that you just read it. I mean, it must be our body's way of just trying to save that last little bit in there. But it's really strange. Going to the start, sometimes things are almost cloudy on the sides of your vision. But then when you get into race mode, right, like everything stops and you figure it all out. You figure some way to put it together. But yeah, it's those factors. It really is the mental side of it.
It's like a well-tuned machine. I mean, the relation between mind and body is amazing. And I can't even fathom doing what you guys do for 21 days in a row. I mean, it really is. It's a science and it's an art. And I don't know if I could do it. I mean, honestly, I'm sitting here thinking it sounds really awesome. But as you're describing this, I'm thinking, God, did you ever just want to quit?
Sometimes it all becomes a little too much, and I just would remember, especially when the pressure's on, right? Like when you're racing, you're able to do it, right? Like, it's like, hey, you can win this race, or, the pressure's there. Sometimes you want to just run from that, Mm-hmm. And I just remember like seeing the Starbucks people, when I'd go and get coffee or whatever, and I'd just look at them and I'd be like, I just want to do that. Like I just want to, say hi to people, ask them how their day is, and just pour coffee. Honestly, I never thought I'd stop. I thought I would go forever.
It's not in your DNA, man.
No. And it's like, it's just kind of who you are, right? Like, it's just, you define yourself a lot by, the way you live. And, training and racing for me was everything. And now for me, it's training. I train just as hard as I did as a pro now for a different cause, for happiness and fulfillment and self-confidence.
What were some of your career highlights? And I mean, I'm talking about things that really stand out in your mind still to this day.
It's hard on the spot to dive in and find the perfect highlights. But, one of them for me was Tour of Georgia, which was a big race in America, 2005. And I was on Lance Armstrong's team, and he announced his retirement from the sport. I came to this race thinking I was going to work for Lance and I was going to help him win. And he announced his retirement. And there were so many journalists and so many fans at this race to see him, in his last big hurrah on the U.S. soil. And we got into the race, and I performed better than him, accidentally or whatever, and in a time trial. And this guy, Floyd Landis, who also has a really good U.S. cyclist, Tour de France winner, he won the stage by a lot. He won it by a minute. He beat me by a minute and beat Lance by like a minute 30 or something like that. And going into the mountains, Lance made the decision. He said, we're going to work for Tom. And I wasn't ready for that. I was like, what? You're not that far behind me, and like, I'm here to help you win. He said, nope, we're going to work for you. And I kid you not, like the roads on the sides of Tour of Georgia on this race were filled with people, like, 2 deep, 3 deep, people all over the road. And I was like, I got Lance's team and Lance pulling on the front of the peloton, riding for me, thinking they're trying to set me up to win this race. And the way they were going to set me up is they were going to make the climb so hard that it was going to hurt these other top guys. And so they were fatigued for this last climb, going up this famous climb called Brasstown Bald that's really steep. And so Lance and those guys like went on the front for me and rode it so hard, blew the whole peloton apart. And here I am, new on the team, new in the sport, sitting on the back of this, all the American fans on the side of the road. And, he just said, like, you ready to do this? And I'm like, yeah, like, okay, like, let's do it. And we hit the last climb, and he did this huge effort at the bottom to make it super hard. And then I launched an attack off that and rode away and won the stage and won the race overall. I wasn't really prepared to deal with that level of stardom and that level of expectations. So a lot of the things that I've learned that make me successful now as a coach, I learned from mistakes and failures that I had from that moment, that moment set up, right? Because from that moment on, I was like the next Lance Armstrong, and I pretty much did not do anything like him from that moment on. So that was a really big moment, I guess, for my career there, for good and for bad.
I'm sure you looked up to him for years before you.
Oh yeah. When I was a mountain biker back in Connecticut, like I had a magazine, and it had this, like, he wrote for this team called Motorola, and they had an ad. It was like it was him on a climb looking all gnarly and fierce. And it was like, the body is telling the mind to stop, but the mind tells the body to shut up. And I was like, that's what I do, right? I could tell the body to shut up,
Right.
And yeah, so he was definitely one of my idols, early on. And it was surreal to be on his team and race with him, and then have him help me win races and help him win races and train with him. Like, it was pretty sick for sure.
Then how did it feel to go through the not so good times? It seemed like everyone was doping at that time, and then you kind of got caught in the middle of that stuff with Lance.
During that time, I knowingly, participated in that, and on my own decision. And, I think going into that, when I made the decision to race at that level, I had heard the whispers. I had heard, what people mentioned that existed at that level of professional sports and all that. And I had already made that decision in my mind before I even crossed that road that I, by me taking this journey, I would have to cross that ethical place and go against what I believed in to chase this dream. So when I did that, I had problems, right? Like, straight up, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't mentally handle it. That weight of the expectations, that combined with doing something that, I knew was wrong, but more importantly, I thought was hurting my body. Yeah. So, I got to this place where I couldn't do it anymore. I freaked out. I had a crazy anxiety attack, and I thought I was dying of a heart attack. And I ran to this bathroom, and I fell on the floor, and I thought I was dying. I thought it was over. And I made a pact with myself. I said, if I survive this moment, I'm done. I'm out. From that point on, I made a decision to stop that and move forward and started the first, clean cycling team with, it was called Slipstream Sports. And that was really the big movement that changed it all, was the riders kind of stood up and said, hey, like, we don't want to do this anymore. And that was kind of the deal with that team, is I got invited on that team. And that was the thing, is like, we don't really care about your performance. We just want you to not do this and talk about transparency. That really changed the sport. And it was a difficult adjustment. You know, you were trying to change the course for yourself personally. But just like I said earlier, with chasing the dream as a professional cyclist, you know, when I made a decision to stop that behavior and that culture, it was very easy to stay on that course, you know, because I was committed to that. And I never really looked at the other people that were still doing it or whatever and saying, oh, I wish I was them, or, you know, hey, like, I was all into that decision. You know, I was fully committed. And if I have to get 15th place for the rest of my life, like, that's fine. You know, I'm not willing to go back to that place again. I was good with it. So that was pretty crazy. But the craziest thing and most disruptive thing that I had happen to me was actually how I lost my career. So how my career ended. When we switched to Slipstream Sports, we took a pact that when we joined that team, that if anyone asked us about our past, we would tell the truth. So there was this big investigation that happened with the Lance Armstrong thing and all that. And the FBI and everyone asked us, you know, will you testify and tell what you did? And at the time they told us it was to clean up the sport. You know, obviously they were looking into Lance, but, you know, the motivation behind it was to clean up the sport. So our team willingly went forward and testified, and I did that, and we all did. Unfortunately, that information was really just used to, you know, sink Lance, which was sucked. There really wasn't that big of a movement to improve things from riders. And I'll say this now, I fully believe it. No rider wants to dope. And I know there's riders out there and athletes out there that are saying like, oh no, they do. They want more money. They're hungry for that. No one wants to do that stuff, right? People want to be healthy and be, you know, good enough and feel good about themselves and perform, you know, fairly. Like, no person wants that, right? Like, it comes from the people above them, from the team managers. And so in order for the game to change, and we see this now, just like when I joined Slipstream, above said, no, we don't care. You know, we're going to help you perform well through, you know, better training and better equipment and better things. And if that's not good enough, we'll try to find better equipment or better training, but we won't, you know, like, fire you or whatever. And so that was a different approach, and it really worked, you know? And so today, I think from that testifying and everything, I wish more of that would have come out of it, where it's like, oh, wow, like, let's really police the team managers and really police the teams, not the riders, because there's not one team manager that doesn't know what his riders are doing. So if riders are cheating or doping or whatever, for sure the manager knows. And if they continue to do it, then it's on the manager. It should not be on the employees, you know? So that was what teed up the end of my career. And you know, 2015, I was at the best shape of my life. And I had a positive drug test, which ultimately ended my cycling career because I had come clean about my past. And this just looked like, you know, oh, Tom can't stop doing that, and second strike. And the way the testing group works is, you know, if you have a second offense, it's like 4 years suspension. So for me, or actually it was like lifetime, right? But I ended up getting 4 years, but I guess it could have been lifetime. So that was the end of my career. And the cause of that was a contaminated supplement, a supplement that I had trusted and I had taken for 8 years and done my research into it and all this stuff. And this is actually how I met Sanjeev. I needed help to prove that, you know, I was innocent, and I needed to find what had happened. I knew him from before, and I'd been testing all my supplements, and they were coming back clean with nothing, and it didn't make any sense. And, you know, met with Sanjeev, and within like 2 hours of talking, he already had a plan. He's like, well, that test lab doesn't work. You got to take him in this lab, and you got to look for this stuff, and you need to call this person and this person. And we were able to solve the problem. And I didn't get my career back, but I definitely had some personal closure that was really important. And I guess part of that closure was me realizing the next pivot, the next change in direction I had to go in. Because when I was trying to prove my innocence in the beginning, my motivation was to go back and race and put my middle fingers in the air. And because everybody was saying I was a bad person and a cheater, and I wanted to tell everyone, no, I'm not that person. And the way I thought that I would make the world a better place would go back, prove that I'm innocent, and then beat everybody. And as I had this time away from the sport while I'm trying to prove my innocence, and I'm losing money. I went like $80,000 in debt, like it's really expensive supplement testing, as you know, I'm sure. And, you know, all of my legal fees and everything was insane trying to stay alive. And I got to a really low point. I had to start some kind of business to make some money while I'm doing this. And so I started a cycling camp. And this is where I found, you know, my next thing was, you know, I'm riding alongside people, I'm coaching them, but I'm still training really hard because I think I'm going to go back and race. And in the last day of these camps, I would have everybody do like kind of a mock race up this climb in a time trial. And I would start last and I would pass everybody and try to get there before them and cheer for them along the way. And this particular camp, I did my best time ever up this climb. And every person that got to the top of that climb told me that was amazing when you gave me advice. That was awesome when you cheered me on. That was amazing the way, you know, you seem really passionate about my cycling. Not one person mentioned how fast I was going or how strong I was riding. And that night at dinner, you know, I asked people, you know, what did they remember from today? And like, same thing. Everybody was talking about my passion into their cycling, and the way I was teaching them was very different than other people I'd taught them before. And the way I was motivating them, encouraging them was different than they had been encouraged before. And that was really the turning point for me, whereas I saw, you know what, no one cares how fast I ride up mountains. Like I can go up a million more mountains really fast, but the way I'm going to make the biggest difference in people in this world, in this sport of cycling moving forward, is to teach people and to use this sport to help people the way it's helped me. And at that point was when I said, I'm out, I'm done. I'm going to take the suspension. I'm not going to take, you know, all these companies and people involved with this and burn them to the ground, you know, because I'm trying to get my career back. I understand mistakes happen. What's most important is that I move on, because you know, even if I burn everyone to the ground, I'm still not going to get it back. Like people, all the stuff happened. It's gone. You know, I have to use it and move forward. So I became this cycling coach. And what was crazy was I became a cycling coach when I was like public enemy number one, because I didn't come out with all this evidence and prove my innocence. There were so many doubters and haters and people. And I went right back out to the sport that threw me away. And I said, hey, I want to help you guys. I've got information. I know how to teach. Like, let me coach you. Like, let me help you. And at first, people said stuff and they were disrespectful and they were hating on me. And I appreciate that and I understand. But I just kept at it. I kept going out and I just was authentic. I was just myself. And I would just start to take ownership in my situation. Instead of arguing with people and saying, no, I'm innocent, I didn't do that. I said, that happened to me. You're right. But now I'm here. I want to help you. I want to help these people. You're right. That happened. I'm here in front of you today to help you. And when you get to that level and you take that ownership, you become invincible, because it's just you. Like you're 100% authentic and people are going to listen. And if they hear that and they hear you've got a solution to their problem, they're going to take it. And that's how my reinvention and transformation began. And I just basically went, you know what, I'm going to change the coaching industry. Like, I'm not just going to like help people learn how to go faster in cycling. I want them to master the sport. I want people to become a black belt in cycling. I want them, you know, to truly like transform the way I did. And then I started to realize like, wait, there's a big nutrition component to this. There's a big mindset component to this. Oh my gosh, there's a big skill mastery component to it. And that's when I built this, you know, what my book is on, this form performance system. And the idea with that is that you master cycling in these 4 pillars, but then those same strategies and processes help transfer over to your life, right? So the same nutritional stuff helps you live longer, helps you feel better, helps you have more energy with your kids, better in your business. The same, you know, strategic stuff that you use to win a race, you can use to win at your business. And and my clients, it was cool because my clientele evolved, right, to a lot of really high performance people that were addicted to cycling. They love cycling, but now it's like, wait, I can become better at my life with dedicating 1.5 hours to the sport that I absolutely love already, you know? And so that's how this whole thing began.
Dude, I love your passion, and I admire you. I admire you for what you've gone through and where you are now. I want to go back to what you were talking about, supplementation, and you mentioned Sanjeev. For our viewers, Sanjeev is a gentleman. He's a formulator. He's the one that helped formulate one of our products Within. And I know you're really, really careful about what you put into your body. And you have been testing one of our products called Within. This is a natural supplement that's all about cell recovery and cell rejuvenation. You've been taking this now for what, 3 months? Can you see and feel the difference?
You know, I was very hesitant with supplements after what happened. I grew up with a mom who was really big into health. And my mom was super into supplements. In high school, you know, I was taking coenzyme Q10, vitamin C. Like I got mono one time and I beat it in like a week. My mom came in with all the, you know, the immune system stuff, the elderberry and echinacea. And so she really like taught me the benefits of supplements. And then when I went into professional sports, that was a big thing. And what's kind of funny is like when I was on the dark side of professional sports, right, with all the bad stuff, that's really when the supplement program for me stopped. And the reason for that was you were basically thinking, okay, all the things that these are doing is basically what the supplements were doing, helping your body to become stronger and recover better and all this stuff. So I actually had stopped with that. And then when I left that world and went the right direction, that's really when, you know, I entered back into that world. And that's about the time when, you know, people were starting to test positive from supplements. And, you know, people always would see that and they'd be like, nah, you probably were doing something bad, but maybe it was contaminated. That was your excuse. But there was definitely a lot of chatter and it was hard to really like believe it or not believe it. But that's really when I became aware of how important it is to trusted supplements from trusted companies that were doing third-party testing, and how important all the different pieces in that supplement were coming from. You know, a lot of times you think you're buying something off a shelf. How could this business, you know, risk their reputation? So that was the mindset that I had. Then when I tested positive, you know, and I started testing these supplements, it was ridiculous how much contamination. So the trick with my thing was I had to look for exactly what triggered my test. But in the process, we were coming across all this other crap that was in there. And I became very aware that there's some serious stuff going on in that world. And so when I started working with Sanjeev, he helped me understand what the difference of these companies really is and the way they source their ingredients and where it's processed and packaged, all the key things that go into it. I became very aware of that, but I also became very scared. And for like 5 years, I didn't take any supplements because I was terrified. And so listen to this. So while I was suspended, the drug testing agency just kept testing me. So I had already retired, but I was, you know, I accepted a 4-year suspension and they came to my house every month and tested me. So here I am in my house, I'm terrified of supplements and these guys seem like they're trying to nail me again or something here. I'm not sure why they're coming. I was paranoid and freaked out. So needless to say, I didn't take any supplements. And this is when Sanjeev and I crossed paths again about 1.5 years ago. He came to me asking to try some of his products. And I was like, dude, do you not remember who I am? Like I am not touching any of your supplements. And he's like, I'm just going to send it. Like, I'm just going to send it, you know, and you can just put it on your counter and whatever. And so he sent it. He sure did. And I took it out of the package and I put it in my cupboard and I didn't touch it. And I looked at it every single day and I'm like, I wonder what that is. And he kept calling me. And finally, you know, I was like, are you sure about this? Like, you're positive, like there's no contamination, like nothing. Like, he's like, yes, positive. It's going to be okay. And so that's when I eased back into taking supplements, but only from his recommendation. And to this day, I will not take anything or suggest anything. Or if any one of my clients comes to me with an idea, they send it to Sanjeev and it's got to be one of his products that he's had his paws on, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that's where I came across Within, and he was telling me about the benefits from it. And it sounded cool. It sounded different, a different approach than supplementation meant to me in the past, looking at, actually rebuilding your body through your cells. And the reason why this really spoke to me was because one of the cool people I worked with in my career was this guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's like a mind scientist, mind doc.
I know Dr. Joe Dispenza well. He used to speak at our events.
Yeah. So I actually worked with him personally, and his big focus was how the mind influences and can change the cells. And so, he really helped me understand, the impact and influence my brain has, both positive and negative, and how it actually changes your body. And if you're sending positive messages to your cells, you're actually going to build and rejuvenate new cells that are actually built out of your new positive energy. And you can actually create what you want to through your mind. So that's why I was already intrigued by this. And I was like, wait a second. So if we're like improving the cellular process and the efficiency and rejuvenation and production and the energy, like this potentially could really help, what we're trying to do, which is essentially keep breaking down these cells and training the new ones to perform at this new level, perform with, using energy as a certain way, perform, being able to do a certain effort. And if we're producing better cells, you're going to have a better result. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why this works so well, is it's addressing, really this whole thing at the core of where it really begins. So I started taking when I started taking this was a chaotic time frame, because I was one of my athletes, this guy, Justin Barsha, who also uses this product, was performing really, really well. He was in the lead of the Supercross championship. And so I was on the road with him every week, and we were, very stressful travel schedule. And I was doing my workouts on the road a little bit with him. And I really had like 3 days a week to train. So normally I would train 5 days a week. Now, because of this travel schedule, I was only able to train 3 days a week. So I was taking during my training sessions, and I felt like my sessions were good. The first thing that I noticed was I wasn't losing ground like I thought I would and I had to stack my 3 days in a row, like all together. And then I take 4 days off, which I tell people as a coach, like, don't do that, right? Be consistent, have a pattern. And I was totally like ramrodding my body, right? Like 3 hard days in a row, airplane, immune system risk, like go to a race, high stress, running around, solving problems, back on an airplane, back 3 days hard again. So don't do that. But I did that. And what was cool was, first thing I noticed was my fitness didn't seem to drop. I stayed in my same zones. I kept building my workouts, making them more challenging. I didn't seem to be losing fitness or losing rhythm over those 4 days where I wasn't training. I do weights and some core stuff, but not, my body needs like pretty hard stuff to really perform well on the bike after all the years that I've done it. So then the part of the story that's cool is that I went to a training camp with our team, with our coaching team, and all the athletes are very fast. And I expected that I would perform poorly compared to like some of our faster athletes and some of our faster coaches. And when I got to this camp, in the rides, I was like better than I had been before I started this Justin crazy travel schedule.
Wow. So
that's when I called Sanjeev and I said, dude, there's something here, because I didn't change anything besides this. I wasn't doing anything different. I didn't change my workouts. I didn't have a new workout thing. This was the only thing that was different. So that was like the first big sign that I noticed, was the training that I was doing was having a better influence on my body than normal, and that I was holding my fitness longer. And I was still making progression in my fitness, even though I wasn't specifically training those days in a row. And then now where I'm back home, and we're in the quarantine here, I've had a lot of time to train. That's when I'm really starting to have time to notice a lot of things. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that I'm having more energy in the workouts. So if I take it closer to my workouts, I tend to have like a consistently higher level of energy during the workouts, and my high performance kind of indicators in the workouts, like being able to do the last intervals really well, those things have been going up. I'm to the point where I'm definitely like a big believer, and I didn't want to believe in the beginning, right? So I kind of, I'm here, because it happened, it's real, and I want to be able to share that with my athletes and guide them to good results like I'm having using this product.
So a lot of people watching this right now, they might be thinking, well, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm never going to rise to that level of a pro athlete. From your experience using Within, would you say that the average person, whether they're maybe skiing or snowboarding or playing in a company softball league or whatever, you think that Within would help them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting from the cell is the place to start, and exercise is cool, and immune system is all tied into that.
The key, the star ingredient in the product Within is NMN, which is really what gets in there. It's the NAD plus precursor. That's what's really helping your cells rejuvenate, along with the CoQ10 and PQQ. But the other thing about Within that we really like, it's this core molecule, NMN, the superstar, but it's surrounded by all these amazing other supplements that are in there and the whole vitamin stack. I mean, what's your thought on Within and everything's in that one little capsule?
It's super high performance, right? Like it's right in line with my business, and I'm really looking forward to educating my group and getting them seeing the same benefits that I am.
Well, Tom, listen, my friend, thank you very much. I know we're going to have a long-lasting, prosperous relationship together, and we're going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, of course. No, I thank you. I didn't expect such an awesome interview. So thanks for asking all those questions and inviting me to share all that stuff.
Of course. I certainly enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone else watching certainly did as well. So thank you very much, man. I'll be talking to you very soon. And for everyone that's here, thank you guys for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. We hope you've gotten something out of this today. I'm sure you have. I know I certainly have. I'm fired up. Hey, go out there, be educated, live strong. And as Tom says, hey, go all in. If you're going to do it, you're going to live life, go all in. Thank you guys. Take care.